Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the eighth episode of Tech Talks with Santosh. And today we have a very special guest from Belgium. So Sam V is joining us from Belgium. Sam is one of the Google developer expert for Angular. He is also running NG Belgium. He is co-organizer, and he's also co-organizer for Angular Belgium meetup as well. And he's also running an Angular challenge online. So you might have seen, if you are on LinkedIn, you might have seen I had shared a post like few last month. So it was organized by Sam, where he gives cool prizes if you answer everything correct. And he's also a professional web developer since 2006, and he's father as well. So, and yeah, so that's about Sam. And welcome, Sam, and thanks a lot for giving us the time.
Yeah,
And
my pleasure.
yeah,
Thank you
so
for the introduction.
yeah, yes, Sam. So you want to inform anything or add anything else in case I missed something? So you can add that.
No, that's perfect. No, that was basically the introduction I do all the time. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm very involved in the Angular community,
Mm-hmm.
especially more in Europe. But
Ah,
since the global pandemic, yeah, we can go online and share with the entire world. So that's very
mm-hmm.
nice. That's the bright side of everything. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is the best we can do right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So today we are going to actually discuss about the history of the web development. So we'll front end development, not the web development. Otherwise, it will be like a really big topic. So
Mhm.
Sam actually gave this idea, so we can actually discuss about web development. How you think about it? And I was like, that would be great. I think Sam has been like into front end development for more than 14 years, and he can actually share a lot of knowledge with us on the same. So. We'll start with the history of web development, Sam. So, what do you think when it started, all the front end stuff, and then when you started? So, we want to actually
Yeah.
listen to that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, indeed. So when it started, I was not even born yet then. Yeah, the web started somewhere, I think around 1990,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere at the beginning of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was because there was like a very basic network. Well, basic.
Mm-hmm.
We can say basic now because it has evolved a lot. But back
Yeah.
then it was like state of the art. It was very special and also very undervalued, I think, because if you look at it now, yeah, the internet and the web, it's part of our lives. It's the income of many people around the world, whether it be web development or marketing, online marketing, or social media stuff like that. So yeah, so it all started in 1990
Mm-hmm.
by one of well, it started with Tim Berners-Lee, who invents the
Mm-hmm.
base of all web applications, which is
Okay. HTML and
HTML.
CSS. Yeah.
HTML. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So could you perhaps share the
Yeah. One
slides,
second.
or do you want to
Yeah.
discuss further? Okay. So the evolution of front-end web development. Let's go. So this is Tim Berners-Lee
Mm-hmm.
showcasing his computer or whatever it's on there. he he worked for CERN at the time.
Uh-huh.
It's a research was a big research company. It still is in Switzerland, um, and he wanted a way to share like data and research to other universities and other
Mm-hmm.
companies around the world. Um, and for that, wait, for that he yeah. So for that he invented the first um, the base of how to share pages on the internet, which is HTML. And back in the day, we didn't have any browser yet, so we only had like very basic screens and terminals.
Mm-hmm.
And a way to share that was via the terminal. People were already connecting to each other, sharing stuff. You could already connect to a server using a terminal. That's the way it was done. I don't know the details because, as I said, I was not born that day. Those days, so
Yeah,
I'm
I know.
I'm just showcasing what I found on the internet about this. And this
Mm-hmm.
was one of the first browsers, actually. It's like a line-based browser where it prints
Mm-hmm.
every line of the content
Mm-hmm.
on the terminal. So that's what you see here. It's the first interactive web page.
Oh.
And if you look at it now, it was like, oh yeah, where do I start? To start, you press any key and you just go. But in fact, yeah, as you can see here, it goes too fast. But each link is like connected with a shortcut. Let's say if you pressed 1 or 2, you could go to the correct link.
Uh-huh.
And it was all powered on a computer. So this was actually the first computer where this website was hosted, and there was a sticker on it that said, "This machine is a server. Do not power it down. Then the internet or the World Wide Web will be down." So yeah, you already introduced me, so we can skip that. And so yeah, today no Angular, but a very brief overview of and history of the internet and front-end web development, and more about the evolution of web technologies. Some fun facts, like for example, there's a typo, the amount of websites, and some impactful companies that were really part of the evolution. So it began the 1990s, till 1994. I will do it in like time spans of 5 years.
Okay.
And so it started. There were web pages available. We had technology to start building up web pages. We had HTML. So already a new market, of course. The new company started. Yahoo started. And another new market was born, the browser market, which is a very big part of the evolution as well.
I know.
It all started first with text-based browsers, like World Wide Web, which was actually the first version was the version that we saw here. Then it rebranded to Nexus. There was another one, Lynx, but as the years evolved and the technology evolved, other browsers were developed. And the first one, for example, was Mosaic. And Mosaic was the first one to include graphical elements like images and stuff. So then Netscape Navigator came as a competitor, and Netscape Navigator evolved without. You cannot see it. There's something.
Okay, 1 second.
Going off the screen, but perhaps
I just removed the banner, so now I can see.
Cool. So there was no JavaScript yet at this point.
Okay.
It was pure HTML. There was already some CSS. I think in 1994, CSS started getting off. And if we check the number of websites that time, there were like around 2,500 websites.
Oh.
At the end of 1994, which is not a lot. Imagine that you have only like 2,500 websites these days. That you have to 2,500 websites. Yeah, it's impossible.
I mean, every developer has its like 2-3 portfolios. So
yeah, that would mean that there were only like 1,000 developers now. So yeah, we continue in 1995 to 1999, and in 1995, JavaScript, originally called Mocha, and later LiveScript, and then to become JavaScript, was created by Brendan Eich. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. So in 1995, and at that point, the real browser wars began, because there were different operating systems, also like Microsoft, Microsoft Windows, and Microsoft Windows included their own browser, Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
And the browser wars began, and it included they all used the different technologies. There were no standards yet. So already in 1995, in the period from 1995 to 1999, you had banners on websites saying this website should be viewed in Internet Explorer, or this website should be viewed in Netscape for the best view. So that has been around since the beginning, and like a few years ago, we still had that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Website should not be viewed in Internet Explorer 6,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
But to be clear, there were some modernization or standardization processes ongoing. And for example, CSS was getting wider adoption, and HTML kept evolving because at the end of 1999, we already were at HTML 3.2.
Oh.
Yeah. So more and more influential companies started up, like Amazon. Google was finding its way on the internet. It started indexing all those pages. Sorry. You also had Alibaba, which already started somewhere in 1999, I think, or 1998 in China. That was not very visible in Europe and the USA, I think, but they also started very early, just like Amazon. And why am I mentioning these companies? Because at that time, they were not really, let's say, influential yet to the developer communities, but all those big companies are now like the main drivers of the technology evolutions, because they get direct benefits of more capabilities. So they invest a lot in creating very fast frameworks, technologies like Amazon does with the cloud now. And at the end of 1999, we had already like 3 million websites.
Oh my God.
So we went from end of 1994, 2,500 websites, to the end of 1999, around 3 million websites.
That's huge.
Yeah, so people had seen the light, and they were like developing websites, putting their companies online. And if we take a look at how HTML evolved, you can see new elements are added all the time. And if we take a look at the link, go directly to the link.
Oh.
Looks like a very old website, but yeah, it's working. So yeah, we can see that, a lot of semantic elements were added along as we evolved in what we needed on the internet. For example, in HTML5, audio was added. In HTML4, an abbreviation or acronym tag was added. So this is a very interesting website, and it's I put it on the slide, so I will share the slides later.
Yep.
If you want to, the people who are checking out the live stream can check it out as well. So if you go back, okay, I'm back at the slides. So moving on to 2000, 2004, and this is where, for me, the more interesting part begins, because there are more and more devices coming on the market that have different viewports and stuff like that. So the idea of responsive websites is coming to life. And I'm also mentioning, like, even in the 1990s, we had phones with browsers. So imagine that in the 1990s, you already had to develop a website for your phone. So responsive websites see the light, and other terms in the beginning were used, like a flexible layout or a fluid layout or an elastic layout. And there's also the introduction of concepts like progressive enhancement and graceful degradation, where you add functionality or remove functionality when the browser or the device is not capable of handling it. So yeah. And of course, the browser wars continue. Internet Explorer keeps evolving. Safari is released. Netscape Navigator fades out a little bit, but Firefox takes over the code base, I think, and evolves Netscape Navigator into Firefox. And the release of Safari was actually very big because in the beginning, Microsoft was very dominating the markets with Windows, and Internet Explorer came pre-installed.
Yeah.
So now with Safari, every computer of every Macintosh released OS had Safari on it.
Oh.
So yeah. And then in the end of 2004, we already had like 50 million websites. And with websites, to be clear, I don't mean pages or whatever, because every page could still have like every website could have like 100 pages. This is really like host names like google.be or google.com. And then 2005, 2009, John Resig, very famous for jQuery, he wants to do something about those browser wars. And that's why he creates jQuery. He wants to create a framework or a library that allows us to do an action consistent in each browser. So that we did not have to target, okay, I'm doing like an action for Internet Explorer or for Firefox or for Chrome or whatever. Just one API that does it all. That makes your website cross-browser compatible. So this was a very big deal for me. And this was also, sorry, this was the time that I started developing websites. So there's always like a discussion, yeah. If you start doing web development, you should learn JavaScript or you should learn the basics. But I'm not 100% agreeing with that. If you start web developing, you need to make sure that you deliver a working application. And jQuery was the right tool for the job.
Agreed.
jQuery,
yeah. So I started my career back in 2009. So I could see the impact jQuery had. Yep.
Yeah. And it still has.
Yeah.
Because jQuery is still one of the most used frameworks or libraries on the internet. And that will not go away very soon. So jQuery is still evolving. jQuery is still releasing stable versions. So yeah, if you want to use jQuery, you can still use jQuery. And yeah, I almost forgot to mention Chrome came out. So Google also released their own version of a browser. So more browser wars. But Chrome did actually a very good job, and also because they were released by Google, so Google was in a very good position to market their browser, and Google Chrome quickly became one of the most popular browsers still today, used by people all around the world. So yeah. But to repeat one more time, jQuery was for many developers a big enabler to start writing performant and reliable web applications. And if we take a look at the number of websites in 2009, we already had 240 million websites. Impressive. Very impressive. And then 2010, 2014, the rise of the web application in the enterprise. Yeah, so many enterprises were seeing the light of the web being a very good portal for their applications. And AngularJS was released, the first stable version of AngularJS was released in 2010 or something.
Mhm.
So, and AngularJS was using jQuery.
Yeah, jQuery.
Indeed, indeed. So many AngularJS applications still running today are still using jQuery. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why jQuery is still so popular, of course. Um, and we had React and Vue at the end of 2014. So this was a big change in the front end developer market because many enterprises needed reliable frameworks to start building their applications.
Right.
And I'm of course forgetting others. There were Backbone, there was
Yeah.
Ember,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm an Angular developer, and I mostly touched these
Yeah.
frameworks, but there were plenty of others. I have to admit that. So
Yeah.
not to not to shine a bad light on all the other frameworks, they were probably at their user base. So yeah,
Jan is here. He's saying, Sam, you forgot RxJS.
but Jan Nicholas is making sure that nobody forgets that. I didn't know it was already 2009. That's very impressive.
Same here. I I mean, first time I heard RxJS was like when I started Angular 4.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. I cannot recall when I started using RxJS. I really can't. Probably like you with Angular. Yeah. So the number of websites at the end of 2014 was around 1 billion. So it really grows exponentially. Yeah. And then 2015
Still going on.
till today, there's a lot to say. There's very much to say about the high pace of how everything evolves in front end. And for me, the most important one was that Angular was released in 2016, and I immediately jumped on it. I really liked it. It was very cool. But the most important thing to mention is that these days, almost each problem or challenge or whatever situation that we come in web development, there is a tool or a library or a framework that will solve it for you. And that's very important. And that comes with the freedom that every developer gets these days, is that they can create frameworks. They can create frameworks as side projects. They can release it online. People will pick it up. They will see it, and they were like, okay, wow, this looks good. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna write your documentation. I'm gonna solve bugs for you. So that is for me at these days the one of the most important things in web development. It's the community. It's people helping each other building these awesome tools. That's for me one of the most important things. And then you see there that cloud thing that I wanted to mention, that the cloud is also a very big thing in front end web development. Because if you want to like publish your website, you don't need a server anymore. You don't need to maintain it anymore. You just get a free hosting on Firebase or Google Cloud or wherever you want it, Netlify, you name it. There's so many things available. So yeah. And the number of websites these days is around 2 billion.
Oh my God.
So 2 billion websites available. That's like a huge amount of developers as well. Eh?
Yeah.
Each of these websites are built by some developer, perhaps by
Agree.
perhaps by automated software, but that automated software like Wix or any other publishing platform, it's built by a developer.
Yep.
So we are many developers these days, which is very cool. So what's the future? What's the future like? Who knows? Who knows? Many things can happen, but there are some things that are really trending. And what you see on the right is actually an image that I share each year, that I see it popping up in Facebook as a memory, and I share it again because each year it's the same thing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I like it. I'm learning
Agreed.
a new framework, I'm learning a new methodology, and it's all very new and very shiny, but it's fun. So I like it. So what do I think that the near future will bring is that's my opinion, but there are a lot of work. There's a lot of work ongoing on stability of frameworks, making the frameworks that are there, making them faster. We all need to align on standards.
Mhm.
We are the community is working very hard on discussing what should become a standard, and
Mhm.
all the browser vendors are talking to each other. Well, most of them, and aligning on what should be the standard.
Yep.
Um, yeah, what I also see is that we're going back. We're going steps back because we went from static HTML
Mhm.
in the 1990s. We were building very dynamic web applications, single page applications, and now what we're doing is we're making them static again.
Agreed.
We're
I
server
agree.
side rendering them, and we are inventing new terms like Jamstack.
Jamstack.
So we're going back and around in circles. And why is that? Because we're hitting like performance limits. It's like
Yeah.
we are finding different ways, different solutions
Mhm.
to the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I come to the discussion point about what do you think? What do the viewers think? And
Mhm.
something that I want to make sure is that we always have to remember that we developers are the future. We in the community, we are
Mhm.
the ones that are developing. We should echo to our peers about what do we need to build better applications.
Agree.
So thank you.
Yeah, that was a really cool, Sam. So I'll come back to some of the points. So let's say we had from 2009 and till I think 2013 or 14, I had seen that a lot of tools were not available, right? So if I have to create an application, let's say Angular JS, so most of the applications were deployed without even minification or bundling. They were
Mhm.
just like, okay, all the JS files is actually put on the server, and now I think due to maybe Node.js played our most important part, which I think. What do you think? I mean, it actually became an enabler eventually. You can write your tools, you can
Yeah,
use that tools, build your own tools, and now most of the
yeah,
frameworks actually use them as well.
yeah. So Node.js and npm, like you say, and Yarn,
Mhm.
one of the most important things that happened
Mhm.
to JavaScript developers. Well, not even to JavaScript developers, because any developer can use Node on his machine.
Mhm. Yep.
So what you say, 100% correct, because in the beginning we had, like for example, Yeoman. I'm not sure how to
Human
Yeoman
generators, yeah, human
to
generators.
generate
Yeah.
applications, to
Yeah.
generate libraries,
Mhm.
and now all those frameworks are building that inside their tool set,
Yeah.
like with the Angular CLI, and
Yeah.
they really see the benefit of scaffolding the best practices for us, for the developers. But that's only in the case of Angular, which is very opinionated. Other frameworks like React let you choose. So yeah.
Yeah, we still have create react app, right? So it was actually finally they decided to write create react app, and I think Woo comes with CLI as well with Woo 3. So they
Mhm.
also have integrated all this. They also have Woo update command. Actually, John Papa was just posting about it on the internet. So he was trying Woo 3, and then he said there is actually an update command as well. So I think the most important thing is, of course, the frameworks are evolving, but they are also learning from each other. That's what I think,
Mhm. Yeah,
which is the plus point for the developers, right? So if I go to React, I mean, I can of course borrow some concepts from React to the Angular way. It's not like I'm a new developer if I come to React.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
concepts are like they are trying to learn, and as you said, right, frameworks. There was earlier, you can say the browser war. Now it's like more of a framework war, but they are actually
Yeah,
finally decided to actually learn from each other.
yeah, yeah, indeed. Browsers and frameworks are aligning.
Mhm.
They're seeing there's no real benefit of constantly trying to do things differently, because the concepts are almost that's what I feel. The concepts of how we should build applications are defined. Um, we can only work on stability and performance, like I said. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Jan has this question. So regarding the web standards, do you know the different responsibility of different committees? Any idea you have?
Well, yeah, the main responsibilities of those committees is getting standards forward. So,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he's mentioning W3C and WHDWG or whatever. um, they're they're different. The real differences I don't know. I'm not sure if the details are so important for us.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important detail is that they are keen on getting standards in our
Yeah.
communities.
So as far as I know about TC39, it's like a committee where you propose new changes. So they have multiple stages, stage one, stage two, stage three, and then eventually, I think the proposal reaches stage three or stage four,
Mhm.
they decide to actually implement that feature in JavaScript. And W3 is more of your web standards. So this is where actually all the new HTML tags are discussed, what should
Mhm.
be supported, what should not be supported. So everything is W3C, but I'm not like the next one, what WGM. I'm actually never heard about it. So
I even think that those two are like competitors. But yeah, I don't know the details or specifics about that. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So coming to Jamstack, right? So Jamstack is, I think, from last 2 years, if I can remember correctly, 2017, right? So
Mhm.
from 2017, I think it is picking up a lot. What do you think? I mean, there will be a time then where every website will be again a static website, and they will be using Jamstack. Do you think so?
Well, it's more about the perceived speed or performance of the application, because
Mm-hmm.
many Jamstack websites, like the ones built with Scully, for example, in
Mm-hmm.
the end transform into a single page application.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to achieve, what those tools want to achieve, is that you can immediately read what's on the page, that you can be immediately interactive with the content of the page.
Mm-hmm.
So um, yeah, in some cases you don't even need to go back to the single page application, but yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
only in the case if you have a very static website. If you have a content heavy website with not many dynamic functionality, uh, but in the end, if you are building an application, an enterprise application,
Mm-hmm.
um, you need dynamic functionality. You need JavaScript. Uh, you need to be able to do AJAX calls,
Mm-hmm.
fetching. So yeah.
Okay. So if I talk about, like, you have been, I think I have seen you have been very active in the Jamstack community, as well as you have been doing Angular. So if I talk about the differences or the value they bring, so what are the important point to keep in mind while, I mean, designing a website? So why
Ah,
it
yeah.
should be Jamstack or it should be non-Jamstack?
Depends on your user base. Depends
Mm-hmm.
on who the visitors of your page are, and whether you have a public or a private application.
Okay.
So if you're working in a bank and you're developing an application for internal employees at the bank,
Mm-hmm.
the there are less requirements for the initial load of your application. So my general uh, my general advice would be uh, to go for a Jamstack
Mm-hmm.
if your website is publicly available.
Okay.
If your website has a lot of content, is
Okay.
should be should be loading fast, should be indexable, should be
Mm-hmm.
shareable via Facebook, via Twitter, LinkedIn. If you want to generate if you want to generate link previews,
Okay.
that's when you need static content.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, yeah, so as I said, if you're developing a private application, I see little value in server-side rendering and
Okay.
static rendering of pages, for example. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, again, so you are saying if I have to choose between Jamstack and maybe Angular Universal, you will always go ahead with Jamstack. That's what you're saying?
Mm. No, 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 no. I have a very big post on when to use Universal or Scully.
Uh-huh.
A very detailed post about some use cases where you would use server-side generation or pre-rendering.
Okay.
And yeah, one of them, you should use server-side generation if your content is highly volatile. So when it changes a lot.
Okay.
And if you have, for example, a lot of pages.
Mm-hmm.
So if your content changes, let's say every 10 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
then it's better to do server-side generation because then your generation is very close to where the data is coming from. And if you are doing pre-rendering with, for example, Scully, you will need to pre-render your application every time that the data changes. And that's a lot more intensive or resource consuming than server-side generation.
Okay. So, but again, going back to, I think there are a few websites like Shopify. If I'm not
Mhm.
wrong, they are actually a Jamstack, and they're still able to generate those many pages. How is that possible?
Big infrastructure. Yeah.
So you're saying they have like very huge servers available, and they can just build everything they
Yeah,
want.
you need resources for that.
Yeah.
I did benchmarks for generating tens of thousands of pages
Okay.
on my own computer, and it took me hours.
Oh.
Yeah, so it really depends on your machine to start with, on your available resources,
Mhm.
on the number of pages, on the size of your application, on the performance of your application. So the thing with Shopify is that they are in control of their own application, of course. So they know what pain points they have, where they have issues with performance, so
Mhm.
they can work around those things. They can optimize their rendering flow for that. But if you're creating a tool like Scully does, for example,
Mhm.
they create a generic tool for each Angular application, or even theoretically even any web application. It has to be so generic that there are drawbacks, there are performance gaps that are not easily to solve. So yeah, the
That's good.
trade-offs of yeah.
But you think, I mean, so with Jamstack, it will still improve over the years as the internet has evolved, and we may see a lot of changes coming to Jamstack world as well. I think Netlify is heavily involved in Jamstack. They are actually
Mhm.
promoting Jamstack every year. So
Mhm.
what we can expect, similar to what we had, like frameworks coming together, and can we expect a lot of companies coming together and evolving Jamstack?
Yeah, yeah, the evolution. There was a big post from the founder or the creator of WordPress about Jamstack. I don't know if you have seen that post.
He hates it. Basically, he mentioned that he hates Jamstack.
Yeah, and to some of his points I can relate because in the end you will get the same problems
Mhm.
and you will start solving them differently. And that's not per se a bad thing because you will find other solutions and
Mhm.
you can start comparing those solutions to each other and maybe come to another optimal solution. So there will be some challenges and improvements possible in the future, I think. Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. The most important thing is whatever is happening now. I think if I compare back to 2005, let's say when you started development, so how much easy it has become to learn new technology and
Oh,
actually start creating a new application.
um, it's become a lot more easier to start an application, but it's very difficult to get used to the continuous learning that someone has to do.
Huh.
So so the community and the all the tools that we have available, they're very helpful. But if you don't pick a framework, or if you don't pick a favorite tool, and you start to learn them all, you will be lost. That's not good. So if I can give like an advice, pick a framework, learn the basics, learn the concepts. If you want to move to a different framework, start doing the basics, but don't try to specialize in all of them, because that will just not be possible. It's impossible.
Yeah, I can relate to that, because back in 2009 we had limited choice. Like, for example, there was ASP.NET, there was a JSP, and then PHP. So these three technologies were available, and then you have to choose between one of these, and then you can start writing your application. But now it's like every other day we have a new framework, new JavaScript library, and so don't, as Sam said, right, don't try to actually specialize in everything. Choose one thing and then maybe explore more about it, and then you will actually do it.
Yeah.
I remember by the time I started learning about Grunt and Gulp, actually Webpack came in. So I started actually not investing any time into learning about the tools. So I said, okay, now I'm done. So the good thing about Webpack is, I think everyone has, for example, if I go to React, Create React app uses it internally. So you don't have to worry about the setup part. If Angular CLI is doing that from the day one, so you don't have to do a lot of setups and everything, but you can just start using all the tools, as already Sam mentioned, right? So you can actually start using all the tools, the best tools which are available over the internet. The frameworks are actually doing great job in bringing them into as part of the framework, so you can actually create your app, don't worry about the setups, and then start implementing, deploy your application, and be happy.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah,
and another very good advice that I can give is learn HTML and learn CSS. Very important. Very, very important. I see too many people lacking even the most basic thing of HTML. So that's also very good advice, I believe, to aspiring web developers, beginning web developers. Start with HTML, start with CSS.
So what are the resources you will suggest in case I'm starting with HTML and CSS?
Cool. Resources. Well, I think if you look up on the internet, create a semantic HTML, getting started with CSS, you will probably find any tutorial that will get you started with the basics. And if you visit different resources, you will find different opinions, but in the end, it will all come down to a good opinion, because how you should use HTML is defined in the standard. So if you want to check what you have learned on a tutorial, you can just go to the HTML standard and read what the intended value, intended purpose of a specific HTML element was. So yeah, there are always official resources.
Yeah, I think MDN is the best one where
MDN is a very good resource. Yeah. But that's more of a resource or a reference with basic examples per feature, of course. But yeah, for an aspiring web developer, it's best to check a tutorial or a course on Udemy or stuff like that, or Pluralsight perhaps.
That's cool. So I think Sam, we already reached at the ending of the session. So in case you want to promote something, you maybe your blog post or your work, so anything you want to promote on this show.
Yes, one thing perhaps. So as we are not doing NGBE conference this year, we are doing NGBE Live, which is our own way to keep the connection with the community. and therefore we are doing a live session every 2 months, and the
Oh,
next session is in 2 weeks, I think, or yeah, I think in 2 weeks.
mhm.
Uh, I don't have it. I don't have it online yet. I just want to promote it.
Okay.
That we are not completely done. Huh? We are still doing something for our community.
Okay.
So yeah, expect a new session one of the days. And for the rest, perhaps one more thing. If you want to learn more, I will share my screen again.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps if you can add it. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I write a lot about Scully.
Mhm.
And if you want to know the difference between Scully and Universal, I've written a very big blog post about why you should use Scully and what are some good points on using Universal, how does it work internally, and then you can make your own educated decision about what tool is the best for the job.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it.
That's cool. So I'll add this all these links into the description later. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Sam. Thanks for joining us, and the viewers who are still online. Next week, we have Jan Nicholas Wortman from RxJS core team, and we are going to discuss about a really important topic when it comes to RxJS. So we are going to discuss about how to think reactively, because this is where always struggle, and I'm sure a lot of developers who start with RxJS, the most important question to ask is when to start using RxJS operators, and the I think the answer is as soon as you can. So let's hear it from Jan and see how he can help us, and we can start thinking reactively. So it's happening on next Friday, same time, 10 p.m. IST, and we will be live with Jan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Santosh.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, Sam, for
See
again for
ya.
giving your time, and we'll again meet sometime again in one of the episodes.
Probably.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.